Well, welcome to this edition of Intelligent Video Today. I'm your host, Steve Vonderhaar. Joining us on today's episode, Laura Burkhauser, CEO over at Descript. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Steve.
Thanks for coming on the show. I've known Descript from many, many years ago, being an audio translation, audio transcription type of company. But in recent years, though, you've kind of repositioned the company to be in the AI video space. Tell us a little bit about Descript's history and how you're positioning yourself now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Descript came out of a company called Detour. Detour did geolocation city tours. And in order to create all of those city tours, they would record, long monologues about a bunch of different cities. And as they went to edit those long monologues, they realized, like, oh my gosh, this is tedious. I have to open up the timeline. I'm looking at the wave. I like you, anyone who was editing in that time will tell you that they know what the word looks like in a wave. And so that was sort of before Descript. And then what Descript became famous for doing is letting you edit your transcript. And as you edit your transcript, just like a doc, you're editing your audio file along with it. So anyone who can edit a doc suddenly can edit a podcast. Well, from there, it was only natural to say, like, okay, well, what's so hard about doing this for video if you can do it for audio? It's the same kind of aligning the transcript to the audio or the video. And then as you edit your transcript, you're editing your video now. Well, what's so cool about that is that then when LLMs came out, LLMs are very, very good at working with language. And at the time, very, very bad at working with video. And so we, for free, because we already aligned the transcript to the audio, we're able to take advantage of letting an LLM take the first pass at editing that video for you by editing your script and therefore your video. We kind of got multimodal editing for free a couple of years ago. And now, as we have all of these fantastic generative models that can create video out of nothing, we've been able to incorporate that into the platform too, so that Descript over time has become kind of this all in one AI native video creation and editing platform for that's kind of easy enough for anyone to use, but also like powerful enough that real editors who do this for a living, do a lot of what they do in Descript.
Yeah, so we can think of Descript as a company then that was into multimodal AI before multimodal AI was cool.
Exactly.
It's so. What type of customers are the ideal target for Descript? Who gets the most value out of implementing the Descript platform today?
Great question. I think that and I'm going to kind of dodge it a bit because I think like what I'll say is that Descript has decided from the beginning that we are not a point solution. We are not interested in carving out a single type of video that we're good at making and saying like we're really great if you want to make an avatar video, but you're SOL if you want to make any kind of other video. We've said we are a horizontal editor and we can do all of your video editing jobs, all of your video creation jobs. Because of that, I mean, the answer to who gets the most value out of Descript is people who make many different types of videos, which tend to be teams. So teams of people that are all making video, whether those videos are clips, short form social, long form audio, 10-minute YouTube explainer videos, sizzle reels, sort of all of the different video types that a marketing team or that a startup or frankly that like a lot of media companies, podcast companies need to do, where you've got to be in podcasting and you've got to clip all your podcasts and you've got to promote your podcast with social. So I'd say like marketing and media companies and startups that need to make all kinds of video for the internet, and instead of buying a really expensive kind of professional editing suite and then a bunch of little AI point solutions, they can use Descript, and the people who are telling the story can do most of the editing, and the people who know how to edit can then come in and do all those things that we don't even notice,
Yeah,
but
now
that
you
really really count.
now you were just named Descript CEO just a couple months back. What gets you jazzed about this opportunity, and what are you trying to prioritize now that you're in the big chair?
Well, what I always like to say is that I was a customer of Descript before I worked here and well before I was the CEO. So what gets me jazzed is just that I get to work on a product that I love and used and will continue to use, whether I work at the company or not. And, I think like all of the best products, it doesn't just do a job for me. It felt transformational when I started using Descript. I was like, wow, someone like me, I can be creative. Like this software makes me a creative person. And the power of like of a product that makes you think of yourself differently. I mean, it's very inspiring for me to get to work on that every day. When I think about what I want to be able to enable, and the kind of product that I want to build a creative product for people that love to create, whether they're good at it or not. And increasingly, I'm really excited about the ability of AI to, we talk a lot about AI for efficiency, and I think that Descript gives you a lot of efficiency, right? You'll be able to create 10 times the amount of video that you're making right now. But also just like AI as an ability, like as a superpower to raise the ceiling for the quality of video that you're able to create and the level of creativity that you, a human, are able to put into your video. So I think that's kind of like the ethos that I bring to Descript as we kind of develop into the future.
Now, we have these AI assisted video editing and production platforms becoming a bigger part of the corporate workflow. How do you see companies actually putting these solutions into place? Are we going to have Descript as a standalone island unto itself, or are we going to just talk a little bit about how you envision the video production workflow shaking out?
Yeah. So first of all, I think more and more we are realizing that video is becoming the dominant form of communication. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
whereas, like we had the memo and then we had the deck, I think we're entering into the era of the video. Both for external communication, just the sheer amount and different types of video content that companies need to create in order to shape the narrative around their product space and around their solution. We live in a world of social media, which means like you don't just write press releases to shape the narrative anymore. You make the media that you want to be the narrative. And so I think that's happening. And then I think for internal communication too, more and more we're using video, whether it's like video conferencing or kind of what we see increasingly is like asynchronous video to do the work that meetings used to do or that docs and decks used to do. Now, you said like, okay, but what do the workflows look like? And to me, I think like we are the other kind of obvious trend that we're seeing in a lot of like the enterprise, not just video space, but the overall enterprise space is companies that are future looking are creating ways for data to flow freely between apps. And so you have and to be accessed outside of those apps. So you look at like the rise of the workflow builders. This is all of this new software that says, hey, start over here where I keep my docs. Then I want you to feed them over here, transform them in some way into an output that I will then put over here. And so when I think about like how and so you need data to flow freely throughout all of your enterprise apps, and you want to own that data, and you want to be able to automate but keep humans in the loop as you sort of like get that data flowing. So, for example, with video editing, it might look something like, okay, every time that an engineer closes a project, like a linear project or a Jira project, and like says that it's shipped, I want I want Claude Code to query all of that code and write a customer facing explainer of all of the things that have changed in that code that I can post on my help center. Then I want to send that explainer to Descript, and I want Descript to create a video that I can post on YouTube or send to customers announcing the release of this product and talking through how to use it. And I want it to like add screenshots from my media library, and I wanted to publish it. But first, let there be a review state. Things like that. These exciting kind of like cross app workflows that help do the coordination work that really like no one was really excited to be like, oh gosh, why don't I like have the meeting with 5 people to make sure I understand exactly how the code works, you know? So it's really like automating over some of these like very time consuming coordination meetings that we all used to have to attend, and instead just like asking a human to review at the right moments while the workflow does a lot of that tedious work.
In some cases, some of these AI solutions can feel like magic sometimes when they take over some of those mundane tasks in the workflow. But we are still at an early stage, though, in terms of AI infused feature development. Are there risks associated with creating an end-to-end or adopting an end-to-end workflow for video production? How do you deal with that type of uncertainty in a fast-moving market?
Absolutely, there are risks. And you'll notice that even as I was like building my dream for you, I kept saying, like, and you will have a human review. And I think that's because right now I would absolutely not want to automate almost any workflow without having a human in the loop. We've all seen what happens when AI hallucinates and the crazy things that it invents. And I also think beyond hallucination, like an unpopular opinion that I have is that right now, me reading through 25 customer emails, I just get things that I don't get when I copy and paste those emails into ChatGPT and say like, "Hey, can you give me the 3 most important things that came out of this?" Like, so I think like we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that we are already in this place where, AI can just do everything. And I think it's really important to remain a bit incredulous even as we experiment a lot as leaders, because I've definitely talked to people who are like, yeah, I just decided I would, vibe code my entire front end, and then I had to re-architect my entire front end, and now I don't hire junior engineers anymore. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's like you went a little bit too all in. So there are certainly risks to this. I think that one of the things that I believe, and the way that I'm building Descript, is even as I'm building those great connectors so that you can start to do this background work and automation, I'm really investing in the application layer of being just a wonderful and enjoyable video editor to spend time in, because I think that humans will be spending time in video editors for many years to come. And that is also not, that's maybe you can put that in there in as a hot take, because I think there are plenty of people who don't want to build application layers because they're hard to build, who are like, we're not going to need the application layer, we'll just do everything through voice and through text. And that might work for a segment of kind of the creative space, but I think especially when we're talking about creatives, like that's likely not true. The amount of control that folks want just screams for knobs and dials and a moment for a human to come into an automated process and say, now I shall raise the quality bar. Thank you for setting everything up for me. Thanks for doing the tedious work. I need to come in here and add some taste. And then I think even beyond creative software, like we said, the quality just isn't there right now for you to get away with doing this entirely agentically. You need humans to go in there to check the work and to find the things that the machine missed.
Yeah, in IntelliVid, we draw parallels between the traditional legacy of word processing and the potential future of video processing in terms of shaping corporate knowledge, and talking about the ability to have people sit in that video production queue and actually produce content that's worthy to share with others really is going to be a big thing moving forward. And for corporations in particular, there's going to be a need to do that production at scale. How does Descript enable scale, or how does the AI features within Descript enable scaled video production?
Yeah, so I think there's like the answer today, and then I think there's the answer, by the end of this next year. The answer today is that we have the ability within Descript for you to define a workflow, right? So you can create, we have an agentic editor within Descript that you can work with to create a workflow that you can use over and over again. So let's say that you put out a podcast and you know that every single time what you want to do is load in your 90 minutes of like palling around with your guest. You want to cut it down to the best 45. You want to organize it thematically. You want to add your music and your like title screen to the front and end with your bumper. And, you want to bleep all of your swear words. So you can kind of create a workflow in Descript where you kind of explain to our agent, like, this is what I want you to do. You work on it together, you try it out a few times, and then you save it as a template. And that becomes like Laura's podcast editing template. And now every time, the way that I get started with editing is I just run my template on it. And, I let it do its thing. I get a cup of coffee. You know, do my do Pilates. I come back and the first round of editing is done for me, and now I can listen to it. I can go in, listen to it, and move things around a little bit, add some of like the sound mixing alchemy that only I can add for now, because like I have that ear to really know when the sound is good or not. And then I publish it. And so that's like how we kind of create an ability to scale the amount of content that you're able, like the number of episodes that you're able to create. For example, editing used to be like a 2 week kind of process, and now most people can get it done in less than a day. I think that's what kind of like you were like, yeah, I'll be able to get you the edited version of this in like some small amount of time. That you think about this 5 years ago, that's not what you're saying. I think like when I look to the future, then I think like it's about, could we actually run those? Like we are working to be able to actually run those kinds of agentic workflows across your entire media library. And so if you're an organization with just thousands of hours of media, and what you do is you want to repurpose that media, you want to repurpose it for every geography, you want to turn it into clips that are translated, whatever your scaled workflow is, that you can do that not only in our application, but sort of like you can do that in the background and you can automate it as part of a workflow that you're building. And so right now we're working with design partners on that.
Yeah, so we get the ability to generate video by the truckload. What kind of benefit does that ultimately have for the enterprise to be able to produce video at scale?
I think like we were saying, there's a lot of new types of B2B video content that need to be created. And if you ask people like, why aren't you making more content? The story is always the same. It's something like we have 0 to 4 people who work in our organization who know how to do this well. And so they can make one video a month, maybe. And what we do is we say like, well, what if all of the mise en place, like all of the like project creation, getting the right files in there, and like doing just like the first 80% of the job was automatic, so that those 4 people could really go in and just spend their time doing the thing that only they know how to do, right? And the other way that we do that, so that's like fully automatic and AI driven. And the other way that we've traditionally done that is just like, what if people who know the story but don't know thing one about editing can go in there and edit the files? So, like, what if I, the person who gave this talk, right? I'm the CEO of Descript. You and I are doing this talk right now. In Descript, I can edit this talk. I can at least get it 90% of the way there. And I can do it probably better than even the folks on my video team, because I know this space so well. I'm like the storyteller and the content expert. And usually that's what happens when you're building video. You have a content expert and you have like a video expert. And I think that, what Descript traditionally has done is it said, like, let the content expert come in and do the first pass of the video. They're going to know the story that they want to tell. And then let the video expert come in and make it look good. And I think with like agentic AI, you can delegate parts of both of that task out. So like, let's actually let the content expert come in and just review what AI thinks the right story is. And then let's let the editor come in, the video editor come in and review how Underlord thinks that this, or how our agentic editor thinks that this should be, how the lighting should look and how the scenes should look and how the animations and transitions should work. All that stuff that storytellers don't necessarily see.
So take a look around the corner. Look into your crystal ball, if you could, Laura. Give us a sense. It's hard to know what's going to happen 3 months from now, much less 3 years down the line. But where is all this AI video generated stuff going to take us from an innovation and a market impact perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way that I think about the AI video space is really in like 3 layers. There is the kind of generative model layer. This is a lot of the exciting stuff we're seeing where people can go from nothing and create a video. And then there's the orchestration layer. And this is the layer where you bring recorded media, generated media, and then all of the things that you put on top of that media, all of the different layers, and you decide how you're going to assemble those things and edit them into a video. And then kind of the third layer is that application layer. And those are the actual knobs and dials that humans turn to do editing space. And so I think that you'll see tremendous development across all three of those layers. On the generative side, you will see generative models continue to get better. They're going to be able to generate things longer. They're going to be less expensive to use. And so they'll become more ubiquitous. It'll stop being a novelty and it'll start being something that we see in kind of meme culture, which we're already seeing, but really in more serious use cases too. And for B-roll, yes, for A-roll potentially, and then even for some of the layer stuff here, you for transitions and animations, a lot of that will be done generatively as well. On the orchestration layer, this is really a layer where Descript plays. This is where I think more and more we'll be able to build agents that have a sense of taste, that are able to not just be doers that you assign things to, but are able to be creative collaborators who can help you understand exactly how you reach your objective. So the way that you're talking to them isn't like, hey, can you do this very specific task for me? It's more like, I am trying to create a commercial that connects emotionally to my audience. Can you help me construct a series of shots that really helps you form a relationship with the person that I've like filmed or with the things that I've generated? And it has that kind of directorial sensibility to be able to do not just what you ask it to do, but to understand what you're trying to do and do things you didn't ask it to do. And then I think on the application layer, what I'm really excited about here is I think, like I said, knobs and dials will continue to be important, especially when craft and control is important to the person who's creating. But importantly, they won't be the knobs and the dials of the past. First of all, a lot of them under the hood of like the knobs and the dials that you're turning are going to make calls to models, right? So it's not deterministically changing something in your video. It's actually talking to a model and regenerating it behind the scenes. But like then if you go even further out, and maybe by 3 years we'll get here, you'll have UI on the fly, generative UI. So not just generative AI, but like the knobs and the dials will actually be specific to the video or even the scene or even the asset that you're working with. So right now I have this brand designer, and every time she creates an asset for us, she actually goes into Bolt and makes a micro app for that asset, which has knobs and dials that are like, oh, hey, could you add more confetti? And could you make the confetti pieces smaller? Which is just like crazy to me that, she can spin up this app where there's this UI that's useful for exactly one asset. And I
One
think,
thing. You have
yeah,
one job to do.
yes. And I think more and more like great application layers are going to be able to suggest the right knobs and dials based on the thing that you're editing and working with.
I know I'll take that middle point that you made. I think most of us could benefit from having an agent with good taste. So hopefully, among all the things you said there, I'm rooting for that one the most when we're
Great, we're
looking
working
down
on
the
that
line.
one. So
Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll be on the lookout for that. Laura Burkhauser, CEO of Descript, thanks so much for taking the time to visit us today.
thank you so much, Steve. I really enjoyed our conversation.
And we thank you for joining us for today's episode. If you want more insight from industry thought leaders like Laura Burkhauser from Descript, just go to the YouTube link for Intelligent Video Today, subscribe, and you'll get notifications of future editions of our interview series. For IntelliVid Research and Intelligent Video Today, I'm Steve Onderhaar. Thanks for your time.